So guys, let's start. So please note guys that in my session, which will span for a duration of 50 to 60 minutes, in this session, we'll be talking about Azure AI Foundry tool. In this portal or in this tool, you will have lot of generative AI models available. Okay. So if you want to work with image based generative AI models, you can work with those. If you want to work with audio based generative AI models, you can work with those. If you want to work with video based generative AI models, you can work with those. The point that I'm mentioning is here you have generative AI models belonging to different categories. But in my session, we'll only be focusing on text based generative AI models. Text based generative AI models are those models to which you can pass text as an input. So I'm sure most of you are already familiar with text-based generative AI models like GPT-4o, GPT-5, right? So all of these popular models that have been created by OpenAI company. If you want to interact with those popular models, you can do it over here. Please note that in this Foundry portal, you will get access to generative AI models belonging to different categories. We have audio-based models, we have video-based models, we have image-based models. But in my session today, we'll only be focusing on text-based models. Text-based models are those models to which you can give text as input. So before interacting with a text-based model, it's important to deploy that model. So first we'll deploy it. Then I will show you how to interact with that text-based model. I will then show you how to create a agent for that text-based model. You have been hearing this term a lot, right? Agent, agentic AI, what it means. We'll create a custom agent for a generative AI model. Don't worry about it. So today our main goal is to interact with a generative AI model. That's first. Then our second goal is to show you how to do prompt engineering with the generative AI model. And our third goal is to create custom agents for our generative AI model. So these are the three goals that we'll try to accomplish in my session. So first, let's try to deploy the generative AI model. Before using the generative AI model, it's important to deploy it. So let me go ahead and let me deploy a generative AI model. Here, you can go ahead and deploy any generative AI model of your choice. I will deploy a popular generative AI model called GPT-4o. Let me go ahead and deploy this popular generative AI model called GPT-4o. So I'll first select it and I will say that I want to deploy this model. At the time of deployment, it will ask me for deployment name. So I can give any deployment name of of my choice. Here I will just go ahead and give it a deployment name. Just try to give a meaningful deployment name and it's up to you. You can give any name that you like. Once you have done that, then just click on deploy button. And with this, your model will be deployed. It will hardly take 1 or 2 seconds and your model will be deployed. Once your model is deployed, now you can go ahead and interact with the model. So to chat with the model, we have this chat section. Using this chat section, you can go ahead and chat with the model. So over here, we'll go ahead and use the chat section. So depending upon the input message that you pass, depending upon the input message, you will get some output message. For example, if I pass an input saying, what is the full form of GPT? Depending on my input message, the generative AI model will go ahead and give me an output message. Right? Now, this is very basic, but let's try to do something more interesting. Now, let's suppose I want the model to do sentiment.
Smith, your audio and video was lost. Yes, yes, I'm
Am
conveying
I
you.
back now?
Yeah, your voice is back. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Fine. So let's go ahead. And what we'll do is we'll try to pass another input message to the model. But this time what we'll do is we'll ask the model to do sentiment analysis. Okay. So over here, let's go ahead and let's pass a input message. I'll pass a input message to the model saying that this hotel has very small rooms. Okay. I'll pass a input message to the model saying that this hotel has very small rooms. Now, please note over here, guys, up till now, is there no audio, guys? Sam has mentioned.
No, no, I'm able to hear.
You're able to hear.
Yeah,
Perfect. Okay.
yeah.
Fine. So guys, I'm passing an input message to the model. I've passed the input message saying that this hotel has very small rooms. But will the generative AI model know by itself that I wanted to perform sentiment analysis? No, right? I have not given any direction to the model. That's why even if I pass an input message to the model will not know by itself that it is supposed to perform sentiment analysis. And you can see it's not performing sentiment analysis. So how to pass any direction to the model? So guys, the best way to pass direction to the model is using this field called system message field. Okay. This field is called system message field. Using the system message field, you can go ahead and pass a direction to the model. So over here, I'll go ahead and do that. I'll pass direction to the model. I will tell the model that I want it to perform sentiment analysis. So the model should give sentiment of the user's input. That's what I'm going to say. Okay. So in my system message field, I'm going to mention that the model is supposed to give sentiment of user's input. Now let me go ahead and let me apply these changes to the model. And now going forward, whenever I'll pass an input message, model will understand that I want to perform sentiment analysis. And here it will tell me that sentiment of that input message is negative. And that's exactly what it tells me over here. Similarly, if I pass any other input message saying that this hotel has delicious food, now the sentiment of this input message is positive, and that's exactly what the generative AI model will tell me. It will tell me that the sentiment of the user's message is positive. But let's do something even more interesting. Let's suppose I'm working in a company called Zomato, right? I'm sure most of you will be aware about these companies like Swiggy, Zomato. Let's suppose I'm working in a company called Zomato and I am being asked to change the recommendation algorithm for restaurants. As you are aware, on the Zomato app, you can see a list of restaurants being recommended to you. So I've been given a task to change the recommendation algorithm for restaurants. What the company wants me to do is the company wants good restaurants to be shown at the top of the recommendation list and bad restaurants to be shown at the bottom of the recommendation list. Now, how will I try to sort that list? Of course, using restaurant score, right? Of course, using restaurant score. But guys, how will I calculate restaurant score? So some people might say that Smith, we can calculate restaurant score by using the ratings posted by the users. As you are aware, users can post ratings out of 5. They can either post 1 out of 5 rating or 2 out of 5 rating or 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5. Using these ratings, you can calculate score. But that's a very simple way every company is doing that. But Zomato wants to do something different. What Zomato is thinking is, apart from using the ratings posted by the users, why don't we also use the text reviews posted by the users? As you are aware, on the Zomato app, users can post text reviews wherein they can describe their experience using few sentences. So what Zomato is thinking is, we'll also use the text reviews to calculate restaurant score. So what they are thinking is, if they come across a positive text review, they will assign a score of +1 to the restaurant. If they come across a negative text review, then they will assign a score of -1 to the restaurant. And if they come across a neutral text review, they will assign a score of 0 to the restaurant. Okay. Now, how to achieve this? So you will tell me that Smith, we can give this goal to the model. We can give this direction to the model using the system message field. And you're absolutely right. We can do that. Okay. We can give this direction to the model using system message field. But guys, can it happen that sometimes you are trying to explain something to the model? You are trying to give your direction to the model. You are trying to explain your goal to the model, but you are not able to describe that goal properly just through words, right? Sometimes it gets difficult to explain your full goal to the model just through words. In that scenario, what should you do? In that scenario, you should pass examples to the model. Just like if I'm trying to explain something to you guys, and I feel that just through words is difficult for me to explain the full concept, in that scenario, I will try to give examples to you. Similarly, if you are trying to explain something to the model, and if you feel that explaining the full goal to the model just through words is a bit difficult, then in that scenario, it's better to pass examples to the model. Okay. So how to pass examples? Let's see. So I will show you how to pass examples to the model. So here there is an option in Azure AI Foundry portal to add examples to the model. I'll go ahead and click on that option. Now, when I try to add examples to the model, two additional fields pop up. One is the user message field, other is the assistant message field. Okay. When I try to pass example to the model, two additional fields will pop up. One is the user message field and other is the assistant message field. Please note
Sure,
that you,
sure, 1 minute. So there are few people sitting offline there. So can
sure.
you zoom in a little bit so that they can see your screen properly?
Okay, I'll try to zoom in a bit. Let me
Yeah.
try to zoom in over here. I hope this font is proper.
Yeah, this should be good. Yep, thank you.
Perfect. All right. So guys, we were trying to learn about passing examples to the model, right? Now, I will explain to you again how to pass example to the model. So in Azure Foundry portal, you can see there is an option to pass your examples. I'll click on that option. Now, when I try to pass example to the model, two additional fields pop up. One is the user message field and other is the assistant message field. Okay. Please note that user message field will act as input for your example and assistant message field will act as output for your example. Okay. User message field will act as input for the example and assistant message field will act as output for the example. Let me try to pass an example now. I'll tell the model that if in case the user passes a positive input message like this, in that scenario, the model should output a score of +1. Then I will try to pass another example to the model. In the second example, I'll tell the model that if in case the user passes a negative input message like this, then the model should give an output of -1. Then I'll try to give my third example. In the third example, I'll convey to the model that if in case the user passes a neutral input message like this, okay, neutral input message means a positive sentiment is also there and negative sentiment is also there. So a mixed sentiment basically, or a neutral sentiment. So I'm trying to tell the model that if in case the user passes a neutral sentiment uh, input message, in that scenario, the model should give an output message of 0. Okay. So if you closely observe, guys, I've tried to pass three examples. At the top is example number 1. Below that, I tried to pass example number 2. And even below that, I tried to pass example number 3. Now, using these three examples, I will try to tell the model what I want to achieve. Okay. Now, before moving forward, I'll go ahead and apply these changes to the model. So these changes will be applied. Now going forward, guys, whenever I will pass an input message, model will understand that I want to do sentiment analysis. And since sentiment of this input message is negative, in case of negative input message, we want the model to give output of -1. And you can observe that the model does do that. It does give output of -1. Similarly, let's suppose I pass an input message having positive sentiment. In case of an input message having positive sentiment, I wanted the model to give me score of +1, right? Let's see if the model does that. And here you will observe that the model will give us a score of +1 exactly as expected. Similarly, if I pass an input message having neutral sentiment, let me pass an input message having neutral sentiment. Neutral sentiment means some negative stuff is also written and some positive stuff is also written. Okay. So in case of an input message having neutral sentiment, I wanted the model to give me output of 0. Let's see if the model does that over here. And you will observe that the model will do that. It will give us output of 0. So guys, over here, I showed you how to pass examples to the model. Okay. So this is also one aspect of prompt engineering. So if you feel that you're trying to explain some goal to the model and the model is not able to understand your goal just through words, then it's better that you pass examples to the model. Okay. So up till here, guys, is it making sense? Is it understandable? Any doubts so far? Up till now, I have shown you two things. how to give direction to the model, and how to pass examples to the model. Up till here, is it clear, guys? Okay. Okay. So Sajid, first what I'll try to do is I'll try to focus on the main agenda of today. Then at the end, if there is any extra question that is outside the agenda, I'll try to address that. Okay. So I'll try to answer your question, but first I'll try to complete the main agenda because I have very less time. Okay. So first I'll try to complete the main agenda for today. Okay. Then if you have any other questions related to AI, you can surely ask. Okay. Perfect. So I hope guys up till now it's understandable. Now let's go ahead and let me show you something even more interesting. So what I'll try to do first is I'll try to delete all these examples. Now, please note guys that in Azure AI Foundry, whenever you will try to interact with the model, you will be having to pay some cost. You will have to pay some cost for interacting with the model. Okay. It's not free to use. You will have to pay some cost. So let me give you an idea of the cost structure. So the cost structure follows a pay as you go model, meaning that depending upon the work that you do, you will be charged that much money. If you do less work, you will be charged less. If you do more work, you will be charged more. So let me give you an idea of the cost structure. So if I talk about a model like GPT-4o, right? What is the cost of interacting with this model? So the cost is as follows. So if I talk about the input message, okay, then uh, with respect to GPT-4o, you will have to pay $2.5 per million input tokens. Per million input tokens. In simple terminology, try to think of a token as a word. Okay. So for example, if I have a small word like apple, it will be treated as one token. But if I have a big word like blueberries, then it will be treated as two tokens, wherein blue will be one token and berries will be another token. But for simple terminology, just think of a token as a word. Okay. So if I talk about a model like GPT-4o, the cost is $2.5 per million input tokens. Then what about output tokens? In your output message also, you will get some tokens, you will get some words. What about the cost for your output tokens? So the cost is around $10 per million output tokens. Okay, per million output tokens. So depending upon the work that you do, you will be charged that much money. Please note that the system message that we pass to the model, right? Then the examples that we pass to the model, all of that comes under the count of input message tokens. Okay. So although the idea is the more examples you pass to the model, the better it will be. But if you pass a very high number of examples, then what will happen is in every model call, along with your main input message, your examples are also passed. Okay, in every model call, this will be done. So if you try to pass a very high number of examples, then what will happen is your count of overall input tokens will increase. And because of that, the cost that you will have to pay will also increase. So the best approach is to always start with fewer number of examples. If with fewer number of examples, your goal is accomplished, well and good. If not, then only try to pass additional examples. Okay. But start with very less number of examples at first. Anyways, up till now, I have shown you how to give direction to the model and how to pass examples to the model. Now let me move on to the subject of agents and why are agents needed. We'll try to learn all about that. So let me start with a clean slate. I'll delete everything that I've done so far and let me start with a clean slate over here. I'll start with a clean slate. Okay, fine. Now let me give you the use of agents. Okay. So let's suppose guys, I am asking the model to give me the stock price of Apple stock. Okay. I will ask the model that please give me the current stock price of Apple stock. Do you think the model will be able to give that answer to me? I will ask the model that what is the stock price of Apple today? What is the stock price of Apple today? Guys, please note that the model only gives answer based on the stuff that is present in its training data. Okay. So based on the content that is present in the training data, based on that content, it will try to give the answer. Now, this model that I'm interacting with is GPT-4o model. This model was trained many months back. So in the model's training data, will it have information of today's stock price? What do you think? Will it have information of today's stock price? No, right? As Nagarjuna mentions, the model will not know that information. And that's why if I try to ask the model to give me stock price of Apple, you will see it will not be able to give that answer to me. And it does say that, sorry, I can't give you stock price of Apple. Similarly, if I ask the model to give me weather information of a location, I will ask it to give me weather information about Mumbai location today. Now, does the model know what is weather of Mumbai? No, it will not know today's information, right? Because the model was trained months ago. So how will it know today's information? Okay, and you can see the model doesn't know that. So guys, here you can see the model has limitations. One of the major limitations of the model is that it can only answer stuff from what is present in its training data. Okay. Now how to overcome this? How to make the model perform actions that are beyond its training data? For that, you will need help of something called agent. Okay. So what is an agent, guys? A agent is an entity that helps the model perform actions outside of its training data. Okay. So let me over here give the definition to you. I'll mention the definition. It will help you to remember. So what is an agent? A agent is an entity. In simple words, you can think of it as an entity that helps the model to go beyond its training data. Okay. So here I'll give you the definition of agent. I'll try to zoom in a bit. Let me zoom in. I'll try to zoom in a bit. And now let me give you the definition of agent. So it will help you. Okay. Let me mention it over here. I'll go ahead and mention the definition. So what is a agent? Please note that agent is nothing but an entity. It is an entity that helps the model perform actions that is not part of its training data. Okay, that is not part of its training data. That is not part of its training data. So, for example, you want the model to fetch current weather information. You want the model to fetch current stock price. You want the model to go into your college database and make some changes. Now, by default, the model will not be able to perform these actions. So if you want the model to perform those actions that is not already part of its training data, for that, you will need help of something called agent. So agent is just the entity that helps the model perform actions that are not part of its training data. Okay. But to help it perform actions, it needs something called tool. Okay. So what is a tool? Tool is nothing but a piece of code. You can think of it as a piece of code that contains the logic for your action. Okay, that contains the coding logic for the action that you want the model to perform. Okay, so whether you want the model to fetch real-time stock price, or whether you want the model to fetch real-time weather data, whatever action you want the model to perform, the code that you will write for it, that piece of code will be called a tool. So I hope two terminologies are clear. First terminology that I try to explain to you is agent. What is an agent? An agent is just the entity that helps the model perform action that is beyond its training data. Okay. Let me try to relate it to a example. Let's suppose, guys, I want to book a Tatkal ticket in railways. Okay. I want to book a Tatkal ticket in Indian Railways. Now I myself don't know how to book Tatkal ticket. So in that scenario, what I will do? I'll go to an agent who knows that task, right? So why am I going to an agent? Because I myself am not capable to do that task. That's why I'm going to the agent who will do that task for me. Similarly, guys, if you feel that the model is not capable of doing some task, or the model is not capable to do some action, then what you can do is you can create a custom agent who will help the model perform that task. Okay, so what is an agent? A agent is nothing but an entity that helps the model perform actions that are not already part of its training data. And the code that you will write to perform that action, that piece of code is called a tool. So I hope these two terminologies are clear. First, what is an agent? And second, what is a tool? Are these two terminologies absolutely clear to everyone? Is it making sense, guys? Is it understandable? I hope it is. Can anyone give me confirmation in the chat, please? Any queries up till now related to the terminologies, you can let me know. Okay. Any doubt outside of today's agenda, I'll try to address it at the end. But if you have any doubt related to what I'm teaching right now, you can ask me now itself. Okay. I've got some confirmation in the chat that you have understood. Fine. Perfect. So up till now, I have tried to explain two terminologies to you. First, what is an agent? I tried to tell you that agent is nothing but an entity that helps the model perform an action that's not already part of its training data. Okay. And the code that we will write to perform that action, that piece of code will be called a tool. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and let's create a custom agent. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's create a custom agent. So you can use any coding tool, guys. Here I will open a coding tool called Google Colab. The good thing about this coding tool is that it doesn't require any installation. It's available online. Okay. So any coding tool that allows you to write code in Python language, you can use it. Okay, doesn't matter which coding tool you use. Now let me zoom in a bit so you will be able to see the code that I'll be writing. Fine. So I'm going to create a custom agent. What is an agent? An agent is an entity that helps the model perform a action that's not already part of its training data. And the code that we will write for that action is called a tool. Okay. Now please note that when you are writing the code, that code should be in the form of a Python function. Okay. The code in which you will specify the logic for your action, or in other words, the code that you will write for your agent tool, that code should be inside of a Python function. Okay. So let me go ahead and let me create a Python function over here. Let's suppose this Python function is just going to give me latest stock price. Okay. What will this Python function do? It will just help me to get the latest stock price. Now let me write my coding logic over here. Now, how can I get the latest stock price? Please note, guys, that there are many websites available online using which I can get latest stock price. One such website is this website called alphavintage.co. Okay. So there's a free website available. And using this website, you can get real-time stock price. Please note that there are many paid websites also available. The advantage with paid websites is that they give you near real-time information with very less lag. However, in these free websites, yes, you will get the same information, but there will be good amount of lag. Okay. Of few seconds or few minutes. But anyways, over here for this demo, uh, I'll just show you a demo with this free website only. So I'll go to this free website called alphavintage.co, and you will observe that in this website there are many free APIs available using which you can go ahead and get the latest stock price. So I will try to use that API, but it says that to use the API you need a API key. So let me get a API key. Now to get a API key, it will ask me to mention my details. So I'll mention my details here. Okay. It first asks me that what is my role. I'll say I'm a student. Then it asks me what is my organization. I can give any name over here. Then it asks me what is my email. I can give any email. Doesn't matter what email I give. Okay. And let me go ahead and generate a API key. Okay. And you can see my API key has been generated. I'll go ahead, copy it and paste it in my code. Okay. I'll copy this and paste it in my code. Let me mention my API key. Now using this key, I'll go ahead and mention my, I'll go ahead and call a API endpoint. Okay. Using this key, now I will go ahead and call a API endpoint. So I will need a API endpoint over here. How to get it? I will visit the documentation page. Hopefully in the documentation page, there will be information about some API endpoint. So I want to use a API endpoint that gives me the latest stock price. Okay. And here you can observe that we do have such a API endpoint. I'll copy it and paste it in my coding file. Let me do that. I'll zoom in a bit if you want. I'll zoom in a bit. Perfect. Now you can observe that this API endpoint that I have is a static API endpoint. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is you can see in this API endpoint already the name of the stock is mentioned. That means the stock ticker of the company has been mentioned. It says IBM. And you can see in this API endpoint, the key has also been mentioned. Here it says that the key is equal to DEMO. Okay. But I don't want it to be static. I want it to be dynamic. So I'll say depending upon the location that the user is, sorry, not the location, depending upon the stock name, okay, depending upon the company name that the user is passing, depending upon the company name that the user is passing, that company name should be passed in my API endpoint. Okay. You can call it a company name or you can call it a stock ticker. Ideally, we should call it a stock ticker. Okay. Some people also refer to stock ticker as symbols of the company. So whatever you want to call it. Okay. Whatever you want to call it. So over here, I'll say depending upon the symbol of the company that we have passed or depending upon the stock ticker of the company that we have passed, that particular stock ticker should be given in the API endpoint. Okay. Then I'm saying that the key should be taken by the user. So whatever key the user has passed, same key should be passed in the API endpoint. Fine, that's it. Now let me go ahead and let me pass a request to the API endpoint and let's see whether I'm able to pass a request successfully or not. But in order to pass a request, I'll need help of request library. I'll go ahead and import it. And now I'll try to pass a request to this API endpoint. But this API endpoint that I have created is dynamic API endpoint, right? You can see certain portions of the API endpoint will be created, will be appended dynamically, basically. So since this is a dynamic API endpoint wherein parts of the API endpoint will be changed dynamically, that's why at the start of this API endpoint string, I will have to mention a character F indicating that this string is going to be a dynamic string. Okay, that means part of this string is going to be dynamically created or dynamically changed. Fine. Anyways, let me just go ahead and simply pass a request to this API endpoint. So I'll try to pass a request and whatever response I get, I will try to get back that response. Okay, let me try to get back that response over here from the API endpoint. I'll try to get that response. So currently I will get response in the form of a status code. For example, of status code of 200 means that the response was successfully obtained. A status code around 400 would mean that response was not successfully obtained, right? So over here, let me go ahead and let me return back the response so that you can see it. Let me return the response and let's see what is happening. So I will try to get stock price of a company called Apple. So let me mention the symbol of Apple company or stock ticker of Apple company, which is AAPL. Okay, let me try to mention it. Stock ticker. Over here, I'm getting an error because this AAPL should be in the form of a string. Let me go ahead and let me pass this information. And here I'm getting a status code of 200, indicating that response was successfully obtained. But I'm not able to see the main data of the response. I want to see the main data. So here, let me get my main data. I'll try to get my main data in JSON format. So whatever is my main data, I'll try to get it and then return it to you so that you guys can also see. Let me check the main data returned by the API endpoint. You can see the main data. It returns the opening price, the closing price. Okay. Then the current price. So for example, here the current price is $295. Okay, current price of Apple stock is $295. Fine. So over here, the point that I'm making is I want to create a custom agent. We know agent is an entity that helps to perform a task that the model is not capable of. Okay, the agent is an entity that helps to perform an action that the model is not capable of. But to perform that action, we will have to write some code, right? So that piece of code wherein you mention the coding logic of your action, that piece of code will be called a tool. Okay. So over here, you can see this piece of code wherein I have written the logic of my action. This piece of code will be called a tool. Okay, so I have created a tool to get latest stock price. Similarly, you can create a tool to get weather data. Okay, please note that the code for your tool needs to be written inside of a Python function. Okay, so here I'll create another tool that will help me to get the latest weather data. Let me go ahead and let me create that tool. Please note that the code for your tool has to be written inside of a Python function. So what I want this tool to do, I want this tool that depending upon the location that the user is passing, depending on that, the tool should get the latest weather data. Now, how can we get latest weather data? Again, there are many websites available online using which you can get latest weather data. Okay. For example, one of the free websites available online is this website called weatherapi.com. It has some free APIs which you can use to get weather related information. At first, it will ask you to log in. I'll try to log in here. Okay, so let me mention my username, password. I'll go ahead and do that. I'll mention my username and password. I hope the password that I'm mentioning is correct. It's been a long time since I have come to this website. I might not remember the exact password. Let's check. Okay, it seems the password was correct. Now let's go ahead and it says that in order to use the free API present over here, you have to use a API key. So let me go ahead and let me use the API key. In fact, the API key is given below already. Okay, so that's good. So I'll just go ahead and copy this API key and mention it in my code. Okay, I'll go ahead and copy it and mention it in my code. So this is the API key. This is the API key that I'll use. Using this key, I will go ahead and call my API. Okay, just like I have done earlier. Just like I have done earlier. So earlier also, if you guys remember, I had passed my API endpoint, right? This time also I will do that. It's just that this time my API endpoint will be a bit different. Okay, so you can get that API endpoint information by going to the documentation page. I already know the API endpoint, so I'll just go ahead and mention it. So it is https:// API dot weatherapi.com slash vwin slash current.json. Okay. So by the way, you will get all of this information from the documentation page, so no need to worry. Apart from this, I'll have to pass some important parameters to this API while calling the API. So let me go ahead and let me mention that information. So first, I'll have to pass information about the key of the API. So here, let me pass information about the key. After that, I will have to pass information about the location for which I want weather related information. So I'll say that the same location that the user is passing, same location should be given to the API. Then it will ask me that do I want air quality index data or AQI data? I will say no, I do not want that information. So I'll say no, do not give me AQI information. That's it. Let me pass information. Let me pass a request to this API. Let's see if we are getting some response back. Let's check. So over here, I'll go ahead and call this tool, and hopefully this tool is able to give me weather related information. I'll ask this tool to give me information of Mumbai's weather. Let's see if it is able to do that. Currently, it says that API key is not valid. Let's check why it's not valid. There will be some mistake maybe that I have done over here. I'll just go ahead and check. Let's see. My API key, I have copied it and pasted, right? I hope during that pasting there was no issue. Okay. Then after that, I've mentioned my API endpoint. My API endpoint also seems to be correct. I've passed the important parameters, and sorry, after mentioning the important parameters, I did not pass it actually. I just defined the parameter values, but I did not pass it. That was the issue. Perfect. So let me pass it, and now it should work. Now there should be no problem, and you can see I'm able to get latest weather information of Mumbai. Okay. You can see there's a lot of information over here. And here you can see we have information about wind, then temperature, humidity, lot of information is there. Okay, you can see temperature is given in Celsius, it's also given in Fahrenheit. Okay, all right. So basically, I was trying to show you how to create a custom agent. What is an agent? An agent is just an entity that helps to perform action that the model is not capable of. So the code that will write for performing that action, that piece of code will be called a tool. Please note guys that whenever you are writing code for your tool, that code should be inside of a Python function. And over here you can see I have created two tools and the code for those tools has been written inside of a Python function. Okay, so make sure that you do this. Now after this, what do you have to do? Let me show that to you. So I have some ready-made file with me. I'll just try to show you that ready-made file. Here it is. So guys, now to create an agent, you will need help of some agentic AI library. Now there are many agentic AI libraries. One of them is Llama Index, which is what I'm using over here. There are many other agentic AI libraries like LangChain, okay, semantic kernel. There are many other agentic AI libraries. There is Google ADK, which is a library created by Google. So there are many agentic AI libraries. You can use whichever library you want, doesn't matter. Okay, here I'm using one Python library called Llama Index. This is one agentic AI Python library. Okay, so using it, I'll go ahead and create agent. Please note that the code uh, for the tool of your agent has to be written inside of a Python function, which I have done. You can see the code for the tool of my agent has to be written inside of a Python function. So what is the agent? A agent is an entity that helps the model perform action that's not already part of its training data. Okay. What is the agent, guys? A agent is just the entity that helps the model perform action that's not already part of its training data. Now, before I go ahead, I'll try to zoom in a bit. Let me see if that zoom in is possible. I'll try to zoom in a bit. Okay. I hope now the code is properly visible to you. Fine. So let me explain the code. So at first, I've just imported the required libraries that I need for my code. Then next, what I did was I tried to connect with my generative AI model, same generative AI model that we deployed. Okay. If you remember at the beginning of this session, we deployed one generative AI model, right? So I'm trying to connect to it. So first I'm trying to pass my model name. My model name is GPT-4o. I will even validate this information for you. I'll go to deployments section and let me show you that the model that we deployed was GPT-4o, right? The model name was GPT-4o. Then what is the deployment name? The deployment name is sample deployment. So whatever is the deployment name, I'll go ahead and pass that deployment name. Then it is saying that this model that is deployed on some Azure service. So what is the endpoint of that Azure service? So please note that this model is deployed on a service called Azure OpenAI service. Okay, so I will go to Azure OpenAI service and I will try to get the endpoint of that service. You can see the endpoint is mentioned. I'll go ahead and copy it and paste it in my code. Okay, and I'll paste it in my code. Then it says mention the key of that service. So over here, you can see two keys are mentioned. You can use any one of them. You can either use the first one or second one. It's just that one extra key is given to you for backup purposes. So in case something goes wrong with one key, at least you can use the second one. Then the API version, because I'm trying to interact with the model with code, behind the scenes, some API will be called. So which API version do you want to
Sure.
use?
One quick thing. So just a time check. Okay.
Correct.
Yep.
I will just send it in 4 minutes. Okay. Fine. So guys, over here, I'm supposed to mention the API version. Now, there are many API versions you can use. You will get that information from documentation page. You can mention any API version over here. Okay. Just make sure that the API version that you are using supports the model that you have deployed, and you will get all of that information from the documentation page. I'm not going to the documentation page. Just by simple Google search, you will find it. Due to lack of time, I'm not going to the documentation page. Anyways, now let's move forward. Next, what did we do? We wanted to create an agent. What is an agent? Agent is an entity that helps the model perform action that's not already part of its training data. But to help it perform that action, we'll need to write some code. And that piece of code, which contains the execution logic of your action, that piece of code is called a tool. And over here, you can see we have written two tools, okay, or two piece of code. This is tool number one, and below that is tool number two. Now we need to declare that these functions are not normal Python functions, right? These are special functions containing the code for my tool. So over here, you can see below I have declared that. So I have declared that this function called get stock price is not a normal Python function. It's a special function containing the code for my tool. Which tool? I'm calling it stock tool. Then I have also declared that the second function called get weather data is not a normal Python function. It's a special function containing the code for my tool. Which tool? I'm calling it weather tool. Okay. So I've declared that these functions are not normal Python functions. These are special functions containing the code for my tool. And now these tools I'm going to attach to my agent. You can see I've created two tools. Stock tool is one tool and weather tool is second tool. These tools I'm attaching it to my agent. But that agent will need some brain to decide that for this input message, should it use tool number one? Should it use tool number two? Or should it not use any tool at all? So it will need some brain. So the Gen AI model will act as its brain. Okay. So the agent will use the Gen AI model as its brain to decide that for this particular input message, should it use tool number one, or should it use tool number two, or should it not use any tool at all? Okay. So let's suppose I'm passing some input message to the model. Okay. Let's suppose I'm passing some input message. I'm asking a question like, what is Java programming language? Now you tell me guys, for this input message, is there a need of any tool whatsoever? Is there a need of any tool? We have created two tools. Do we need any of those tools for this particular task? No, right? As all of you guys have mentioned in the chat. Currently, the task that I've given to my agent is to answer this question, what is Java? Now the agent will realize that, okay, for this task, there is no need of any tool. So for this task, what the agent will do, it will use models training data to answer this question. Okay, so it will use models training data to answer this question. So if I ask a question like, what is Java? In fact, let me do one thing. Let me clear this terminal and run it again. Let me run the coding file again. And now you can see I've asked the agent a question. What is Java? For this question, there is no need of any tool. That's why the agent will realize that for this question, it's better to use model's own training data. And you can see the agent does use model's own training data, and it does say that Java is a high level programming language. It has given a big answer over here. Okay. But let me change the input message. Now let me ask an input message like, what is the stock price of Apple? If you guys remember, earlier the model was not able to answer this question, right? Earlier, when I asked the model a question like, what is the stock price of Apple? Okay, the model was not able to do it. Okay, I'll just go ahead and pass that input message. I'll say, what is the stock price of Apple? Now, the agent will realize that for this input message, it will need help of some tool. There are two tools at its disposal. Okay, stock tool and weather tool. So how will it decide which tool to use? Depending on two things. Okay, depending on two things. One is the name of the function. Make sure that the code for your tool has a meaningful function name. That's one. And second, make sure that the code for your tool has a meaningful function docstring. You can see at the beginning of the function, I have mentioned a docstring or a description. Okay. So based on these two things, the agent will decide that which tool needs to be called. So whenever you will pass an input message, the agent will first check that can this input message uh, be done using any of its tools. So first preference, it will always give to its tools. Okay. Now, how will it decide which tool to call? Based on two things. So based on two things. First is the tool should have a meaningful function name. And second is the tool should have a meaningful function docstring. You can see for each of my tools, I've given it a meaningful function name and I've given it a meaningful function docstring. Based on these two things, it will decide which tool to call. So guys, for this input message, which tool needs to be called? Stock tool, right? I have only two tools. So over here, stock tool should be used. Then let's see whether that is being used. Let's see. Hopefully stock tool should be used and I should get latest stock price of Apple. Earlier, when I tried to pass this input message to the model, same model was not able to answer it, right? You can see same model was not able to answer it. But now with help of agent, same model is able to answer that question. Similarly, if I ask a question like, what is the weather in Mumbai? Right? Earlier, the same model was not able to give me the answer. When I had asked a question like, what is the weather in Mumbai? Same model was not able to give me the answer. But now if I ask a question like, what is the weather in Mumbai? Now the model will be able to give me the answer. Okay. And let's see if the model does that. I'll try to run my code. And you will see that the model will do that. Shortly, you will observe that the model will give us the weather information in Mumbai. So please note that whenever you pass an input message, the agent will first give priority to its tools. It will check using any of its tools whether it can answer the question. If no, then only it will go to the model's training data. Okay. So with this, guys, my agenda of today is over. I hope the session was beneficial to you and it proved to be of some value. Any doubts, guys, related to what we have covered? Any queries, guys? I hope it was understandable. Clear? Okay. So, guys,